Chain smoke your problems away. Smoke Pit Fairy Tales Part 4, Chapter 5, The Racist Crab. The next few weeks passed without significant incident. The Marines practiced gun drills in the hangar bay and stood forever in line for chow. McKenzie, Capulet, and Stockton would play rummy while Thatch and Chuck played guitar in the evenings. Thatch, Stockton, Chuck, McKenzie, and Capulet sat on one of the tables in the mess deck. It was late in the evening and the ship's morale officer was throwing a karaoke competition. Capulet slowly spooned his ice cream and glared at the sailors and Marines making fools of themselves. He shook his head at one of the headquarters Marines who was screaming a pop song off key. Capulet nudged Thatch.
Can you believe this tool?
Thatch looked up from his sketchbook. First at Capulet, then at the singer. He hadn't been paying attention. Capulet looked at Thatch's book. There was a detailed sketch of the room. People were eating and laughing in their seats, and a featureless Marine screamed into a microphone. Capulet was impressed with the drawings Thatch had done.
You should draw him a beard, and a Viking helmet with dicks instead of horns.
Maybe next time, buddy.
Gotta get you to draw my next tattoo.
The one with the Valkyries and Poseidon for your back?
Capulet nodded.
Yeah!
You know Poseidon's the god of the sea, right?
Uh-huh.
And we're not actually on the sea.
We're still sailing.
Yeah, I'm working on it. It's back on Mars. I'll get it done for you when we get back.
Capulet smiled, showing his crooked teeth.
Sweet.
He finished the last bit of cream from his bowl.
What are we doing when we get to Lion City?
I don't know, get drunk and fuck hookers?
Stockton leaned over to their conversation.
And get real food.
Capulet faked a vomiting sound.
Yeah. Ship food is shit. Why do the colonies have better food than Mars does half the time?
Because they grow them in a controlled environment and there aren't bugs, so there's not pesticide and, they're also closer to the sun.
Where'd you hear that?
Just a guess. I've never taken a tour or anything.
Thatch thought about the colonies he'd been to and the things he'd done. Mostly see a sight or two, then party all night. He realized that he'd never really stopped to enjoy the culture. He scoffed it off.
Maybe I'll find a book about it or something at some point.
The strike group patrolled its way to Lagrange Point 4. The colonies of Fragrance Harbor and Lion City circled each other, pointed towards the sun. The Bottom Richard and the Alliance made port in Lion City. The Ranger and Vengeance pulled into Fragrance Harbor. Chuck walked down the gangplank, wearing a red short-sleeve button-down.
I know it's just to leave, but wearing civilian clothes on ship feels weird.
Thatch had a black shirt, a white blazer, and blue jeans.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Stockton had taken the time to get a little dolled up. It wasn't something she did often, but she applied eyeliner and put a bit of product in her bright orange hair. She shrugged at Chuck's comment.
I don't mind. I don't get to get pretty that often.
McKenzie gave her an indignant look.
That's because you don't gotta wear anything more than basketball shorts to go fuck half the barracks.
Stockton scoffed with a laugh.
You're just jealous that I get laid more than you.
Thatch and Chuck both chuckled and pointed a finger towards McKenzie.
Ha!
McKenzie threw his hands in the air.
God damn it, all right. I was making a joke, but go ahead and make it personal.
Capulet shook his head.
So where are we going first?
Chuck pulled out a cigarette.
Wanna go get lunch?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Capulet grinned. The five of them moved out of the hangar in which the ships made port, passing through a maze of steel corridors filled with bright, flashy signs welcoming newcomers to the colony. They moved through customs without waiting. There was a separate line for military on Liberty. They opened the doors of the main hall and walked outside. The walls of the colony were split into 6 equally sized partitions. 3 of them were windows spanning the length of the colony. Outside of them were 3 20-mile-long mirrors that reflected the sunlight. At night, the mirrors would close, leaving the inside dark. The stars could be seen through the sides of the glass. The 3 other partitions held land. One was greener than the others and was mostly residential. The other 2 had scattered buildings between plant life. The city sat at the end of the colony, right beside the spaceport. The other side of the colony was above them. Chuck looked up through the glass ceiling, 5 miles away, out to the mirror reflecting in the light.
What do you think it was like to see the sun from Earth?
I don't know. Ask First Sergeant.
I heard it wasn't all that much bigger than seeing it from Mars.
The 5 of them walked down the sidewalk, trying to separate themselves from other groups of roving sailors and Marines. Chuck was still staring up at the mirror, trying to soak in the sun. Thatch wasn't looking at it, but he too enjoyed the golden rays coming in. Since the 2 of them were half fluorescent, their bodies functioned better when they were exposed to sunlight. They already felt better than they did being cooped up in a dark ship. Chuck slapped Thatch on the shoulder.
Hey, look at this.
Down the street was the most unique building that any of them had ever seen. 3 towers, which looked almost like folded playing cards, held up a mock-up of an old cruise liner covered with palm trees, patios, and what looked like glass-bottomed swimming pools. The others looked up at the building in amazement.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking sweet.
What is it?
McKenzie wondered aloud. Capulet replied.
No idea, but it's probably fucking expensive.
They all looked at each other.
Yeah, I don't have the cash for anything that even looks like that.
Thatch confessed.
None of us do. Let's keep going.
Want to at least take a picture of it?
They nodded and pressed up against Thatch. He pulled out his phone, turned the camera app towards them, and snapped the picture. They pressed forward and around the towers until they came to a body of water. A stone path lined the coast. They walked until they found themselves at a fountain. A 15-foot statue of a creature that was half lion and half fish stood in the middle of the fountain, shooting water from its mouth into the river. The group stood and looked at the monument for a few minutes before McKenzie asked,
So what is this?
Stockton walked around the base until she found a plaque.
The merlion has been erected as a symbol to all visitors of Lion City. She represents the tenacity and heritage of this great city.
Stockton bent in to get a closer look at the writing.
Then there's more writing in...
She squinted.
I'm guessing Chinese?
There are a lot of Asians here.
I wouldn't know. All you humans look the same to me.
Chuck nudged him.
Hey, buddy. You're half human.
Chuck shrugged.
So are you. What's your point?
I don't know.
The group sat down and all lit cigarettes while they looked at the merlion, except for Capulet, who had quit smoking a few deployments prior. Capulet watched the people walking down the pathway, going about their business. A man in khaki shorts, a woven leather belt, and a polo walked up to the statue. He took a few pictures of it before noticing the Marine sitting by the ledge. He waved at them.
Hey, Marine.
Sir.
The man smiled and continued on about his day.
Who the fuck was that?
McKenzie ashed his smoke.
One of the officers from the S3.
Fuckers don't need buddies.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Can't go off the ship in less than groups of 4 if you're enlisted, but the officers can go and do as they please. Like, what the fuck are we gonna do?
It doesn't matter what you do. We're filthy enlisted swine. They don't even need special liberty to stay out overnight. What the fuck makes them so special?
She dropped her cigarette into an ashtray. Thatch shook his head.
I don't fucking know. They have a piece of paper saying they're better than us because they went to an academy.
That's fucking dumb. So what if they know the theories on shit? They're not the ones out actually doing it. You should have to be at least a sergeant before you can go to OCS.
Then afterward, they get on the nicer building, better food, and they get treated like adults, and they get paid out the ass. I would understand the disparity if we were conscripts, but we're free men who joined an all-volunteer force, and the segregation is bullshit. They should have to earn those leadership billets instead of just having them given to them. If you're not a pilot or a grunt or a surgeon, a fucking lance corporal or a seaman can do your job, and there's no need for you to be an officer. And even then, I can only really see an argument being made for the infantry officers to actually be in charge of anything administratively speaking.
I see where you're coming from with supply and admin guys. But what about lawyers, intel, and ordnance?
I don't think they need officers for that. I mean, the nuclear engineers who make sure the ship doesn't explode, melt down, or stop making energy are all enlisted guys. They didn't learn that shit until they joined the Navy. And anything else technical anyone knows, they didn't get it from college. You can have a degree in women's studies via interpretive dance, and that's just as much of a degree that can get you into being a fighter pilot. Your degree doesn't actually qualify you for shit. That's why they retrain you when you show up.
Stockton thought about that for a minute.
Well, I think they're looking at that to make sure you can dedicate yourself to see something finished for 4 years.
Thatch leaned in.
Stockton, how does spending 4 years smoking weed, sleeping late, and learning how to teach kindergartners how to finger paint show more dedication than spending the same amount of time freezing my ass off in space fighting the goddamn Russians?
You're preaching to the choir, buddy. I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
Thatch continued ranting.
Shit. If I had it my way, everyone would spend their first enlistment in the infantry, then could lap move after their first contract. Then, when they'd re-enlist, they'd get promoted to corporal. Then, after they picked up sergeant, they could apply to be an officer, and if they got selected, they'd go to a military academy that taught them how to actually be an officer and how to do what they need to do. Fuck, I think I've met maybe 4 officers who weren't prior enlisted who weren't wastes of fucking airspace.
Yeah, okay, dude. We get it.
Thatch, it's not that we don't agree with you, but we're trying to enjoy the port call.
Thatch flicked the cherry out of his cigarette and tossed it into the butt can.
Nah. You guys want to go find Chow?
Capulet pulled out his phone.
Yeah, one of the sailors I was talking to said the food in Chinatown is really good.
Which way's that?
Capulet punched some letters into his navigation app.
Well, if you give me a minute, I'll find out.
Capulet stood up and pointed down to the other end of the colony.
It's a few miles that way. It's close to the hotel, too.
What time do we have to call the ship duty by?
Midnight.
After an hour's walk through heavy pedestrian traffic, through the bulk of the city and into what would otherwise be described as suburbs, the group found a Hansa-covered arch standing over the road. They passed by a large, red, sharp-angled building with a curved terracotta roof. They then passed down into a street lined with tall umbrellas, small shops, and restaurants. The locals buzzed around, picking up what they needed from the market. The Marines watched them, but didn't bother to stare. One establishment's outer wall was comprised of tanks filled with a multitude of different sea creatures.
This looks like a good place.
The group concurred and stood by the glass while they waited to be seated. Thatch took particular interest in the creatures in the water. He stuck his face next to the tanks to get a better look at a crab. When the crustacean noticed him, he sprang to the edge of the tank and started to claw at Thatch. Thatch smiled and tapped on the tank.
Aw, do you not like me?
McKenzie overheard the conversation with the crab and turned to watch. Thatch kept poking at the crab, and in return, it thrashed more violently at him. McKenzie stuck his head down by the tank. The crab ignored him.
I think that crab's a racist.
In that he doesn't like virescence?
Yup.
I like this guy. I think I'm gonna eat him.
He faced back at the animal.
That's right, buddy. You're gonna be dead in 20 minutes, and I wasn't even in the mood for seafood.
The hostess approached the group and led them to their seats at a table across the patio between more tanks and the street. She handed them menus and disappeared back into the restaurant.
Damn, dude.
What?
A beer's $10
Capulet grunted when he saw the prices.
What? Damn.
Hey, remember when we were gonna just stay downtown, but then we decided it was gonna be too expensive?
Shut up, McKenzie.
Just saying.
Before long, their waitress was at the table. She pulled out her notepad and spoke to them in a language they didn't understand. Everyone looked at each other confused until Chuck spoke up. He replied to her in her Mandarin. She gave him that awkward smile waitresses give customers when they have no idea what's going on. The other Marines just stared at Chuck.
What do you guys want? I'll tell her.
He finally said to the others. They took turns ordering their food and beer through Chuck until Thatch's turn came around.
Ask her if we can eat what's in the tanks.
Chuck asked her and she nodded her head.
Tell her I want that crab by the podium.
Chuck told the waitress what he wanted and turned back.
What do you want it with?
Surprise me. And give me a beer, too.
Chuck talked to the waitress and she went to put in the order.
I forgot you spoke that goddamn moonspeak.
Actually, moonspeak is Japanese. I was speaking Mandarin.
A few minutes later, the waitress returned with the beer. She had a 2-liter of locally brewed pale lager for each of them. Stockton stared at the blue labeled bottle.
$10 for a 2-liter? That's not what I was expecting, but I'm down.
Chuck raised his bottle to the middle of the table.
Well, gents, to the north, to the south, to the whole damn nation, to the state that I love, the state of intoxication.
They tapped their beers together and took long swigs. Thatch put down his beer.
I don't see anyone else from the ship here.
Stockton turned to take a look around.
Yeah, me either.
It's probably because we're deeper into the colony and most people don't know this is here. I'm not complaining about it. I need to get away from those assholes for a while.
I hear that.
Thatch grunted. He pulled out his phone and started checking on the month's worth of messages he'd gotten while on ship and out of service.
Get anything good?
Capulet asked Thatch.
Nah, most of them are from my mom. She knows where I am and what I'm doing, so most of them are just news articles and memes.
Yeah, my wife's been texting me bullshit about the apartment.
Sorry to hear that.
Thatch replied without thought. He scrolled down his text until he saw one from Samoom that simply read, "Hey." It was a few weeks old. He replied back.
Hey, sorry for the late response. I've been on ship. I just got to Lion City. Hope things are going well back on Mars.
Then he shut off his phone and put it back in his pocket. The waitress brought out everyone's food. She put a large plate of thin noodles mixed with vegetables and crab meat in front of Thatch. He smiled.
Fucking crab thought he was gonna get away with snapping at me like that.
He picked up his chopsticks and dug in. McKenzie eyeballed Thatch's lunch.
How's old Snapperhead taste out of the tank?
Delicious.
They shoveled their food down their gullets and downed liters and liters of beer. By the time they were ready to leave the restaurant, they were good and buzzed. They got up and wandered the market. Capulet and McKenzie were indifferent to most things besides clothes and artwork. The other three had an admiration for cheap knickknacks and had to put their eyes on everything. The group split up to look in different shops for a bit. Thatch and Chuck stood on one of the street corners smoking cigarettes. The air was thick and warm, but the breeze was cool and spattered with a hint of rain. How there was a breeze or rain in a space colony, or what caused it, was beyond the two of them. But they didn't complain, chalking it up to the engineers and designers trying to make the artificial environment more Earth-like. They leaned against one of the red posts that lined the sidewalk down the street and watched the electric cars buzzing up and down the road. Stockton walked up to them just as they lit another cigarette.
Yo.
What up? Get anything good?
Chuck asked. He noticed the shopping bag she was carrying.
Oh, yeah.
Stockton smiled. She ran her finger through her hair, pulling it back behind her ears. Hanging from her lobes were plain silver swastikas. Chuck half smiled out of pure confusion.
Do you know what those things are?
Oh, yeah.
Then why would you...
Stockton cut Chuck off with a smart-ass smile.
The shop owner said they represent good fortune, wisdom, and well-being.
Chuck took in a deep breath, trying not to let the frustration get to him. He pointed at Stockton with a cigarette and squinted his eyes while he tried to think of something to say about her earrings. He took a deep drag off his smoke. Then, in defeat, he threw his hands in the air.
Fuck it.
Thatch smiled and shook his head.
What? I think they look good.
What possessed you to get those?
I don't know. I was looking for a good luck charm, and these just seem... right.
What?
The right thing to buy.
Stockton looked Chuck in the eyes, pretending to be confused about why he was upset. But she knew damn well what she was doing, and enjoyed the rise she was getting from it. Chuck left his cigarette in his mouth and pointed both hands at Stockton.
Stock, you can't just wear earrings that represent...
The 4 directions of the world? The myriad of eternity?
Chuck burned his eyes into her.
I'm trying to be culturally sensitive here, Chuck.
I did not see that coming.
Chuck rubbed his hand over his face out of frustration.
Okay.
Stockton lit up a cigarette. The flame from her lighter shined on her freckled face. She took in a drag and exhaled.
Where is Capulet and McKenzie?
Yeah, they're around. I think Capulet wanted to get something for his wife.
Most of the clothes here are shit.
Yeah, but Capulet's wife looks like a beach whale. Nothing's gonna look good on her.
Thatch flicked the ash out of his cigarette.
It's the thought that counts.
The hint of rain in the mist turned to droplets that beaded up on their clothes, and the mirrors outside the cylinder, which reflected in the sun, started to close for the night.
I miss rain.
Thatch leaned his head back and let the water hit his face.
Yeah, we don't get much of that at Castle.
Chuck noted, snubbing out his cigarette and tossing the butt.
Not like back in New Philadelphia. It rains all the time up there. I didn't think I'd miss it when I left.
You're actually from there, though, right? You didn't just go up that way for boot camp?
Well, I'm from California.
Yeah, but you spent, like, what, a week there?
Yeah, then I lived on the moon for a while, but I was in New Philly from like 10 to 18.
Thatch looked down the street between the market's booths.
Now here come the other two.
Capulet and McKenzie strolled up to complete the group. Capulet had a heavy bag full of trinkets and clothes.
For your wife?
Yeah.
Thatch raised an eyebrow and pointed his eye at Stockton. She acknowledged him by rolling her eyes.
It's starting to get late. Think we should start heading back to the hotel?
If we have to. Stupid-ass Cinderella Liberty.
Hey peeps, what up? Thanks for listening to another chapter of Chain Smoke Your Problems Away, Smoke It Fairy Tales Part 4. I would like to thank today's cast, which is Chuck LaVoki as the narrator, Amy Bedell as Stockton, Travis Weidemann as McKenzie, Andrew Stockton as Chuck, Steve Agostine as Capulet, and Tyler Branch as the officer. If you haven't been to Singapore in real life, it's a lot like how, it was depicted in this episode, minus it being in outer space. Crabs and all. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. I'd like to thank the Patreon crowd who gets these chapters early. I think we're on chapter 19. Where are we at? Yep, we're up to chapter 19 on Patreon, and I am working on chapter 20. They get them over there as these come out, as to where, we're on that weekly schedule over here on YouTube. I'd also like to thank everyone who's gotten the War Chest, which is the box set variants of these books. That's over on the site. There'll be a video in the credits. These are the credits. There'll be a video with the bloopers about that. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for reading. I figured while we're here, I'm going to open this bad boy. This is from Dom. Thanks, Dom. What'd you send me, Dom? What's this? It's a burrito. Seriously, this is a nice skivvy roll tuck. That's cool, man. It says world's okay asthmatic, but he went in and typed Marine. And then thanks for the stories. Thanks, Dom. Thanks for tuning in. That's fun. Alright, well, I am terrible at accepting praise, so I'm just going to say thank you. And I'm going to go figure out what to do with that while you guys hang out with the bloopers. Alright, catch you around. Ciao.
Testing. Testing the levels. I'm going to level with you. I'm testing you.
I always drink so much fucking faster when I'm talking to you on the phone, so now I'm fucking hungover today, but here we go.
The strike group patrolled its way to Lagrange Point 4. That's 4. Lagrange Point 4. Lagrange Point 4. Lagrange Point 4.
Chapter 5, The Racist Crab.
Oh, put sir in each voice track. All right, there's your note. Note to trip. Put sir in each voice track.
Ooh. Wow. My penis just got hard a little.
Chuck told the waitress.
Why they got so many Asians here? Wonder if they got noodles. Don't bring your dog around here.
She had a 2-liter of locally brewed breed. It's fine. I didn't like that reading anyway.
I almost combined Thatch and Chuck. Thutch.
Fuck you, pry yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, that's the end. I'm done making weird noises.
They leaned against one of the red posts that lined the sidewalk down the street and watched the eclectic cars buzzing up and down the road. Electric, damn it. I just thought, oh yeah, cars that look like everything from all centuries. That was an interesting word to use. Nope. Electric, that makes more sense.